Is it, you said you had also thought about perhaps running for the Senate uh, in Louisiana, or, and again, you've spoken about perhaps running for the United States Congress representing
Hmm.
Louisiana. I take it, therefore, that you intend to use your knowledge to continue in public service and to seek a future political seat or an elected seat even after your term, if even after you're termed out in the
Right.
state House of
Yeah.
Representatives.
Politics was never my goal. I never had a clue that I would get into politics. I got into politics because I felt that was my way to give back to the community. I really thought that God had blessed me and I had a chance to give back, and that was my way to give back to the community. I feel the need to do it more so now because I feel like I'm a better legislator, a better advocate for our area. I've been there 10 years. I think I've been extremely successful in my accomplishments in the legislature, uh, and I think I could best represent our area. And I'm truly doing it for this area. It's not for the money, obviously, because you don't get paid very well as a legislator, as most people know. You get paid $16,000 a year, and it takes about 80% of my time. But it's not about the money. You know, it's about saving our heritage, and it's. I feel we are the most vulnerable part of this whole entire country to lose our heritage, to lose our livelihood, and we need somebody that's going to fight for us.
Now, you said that you had been extremely successful, very successful in our legislature. I want to talk a moment about what you feel has been some of your greatest achievements in the legislature. But I first want to backtrack a little bit. We were talking about your progression from being educated, becoming
Mhm.
an attorney. At what point did you start thinking about running for political office? When did that occur?
It really was a whim. I've always kind of been fascinated with politics, even though I was never interested, never thought I would enter the political field. While in law school, a classmate of mine got elected to the House of Representatives, Rick Farah from Pineville, outside of Alexandria. And I thought that was pretty neat that he got elected to the House of Representatives, and I saw a little bit of what he did, and I thought it was really interesting how he represented his community. Later on in life, some other friends got elected. I was always friends with Hunt Downer, and then I knew of Reggie. I wasn't great friends with Reggie before. I just knew who he was, and I followed Reggie's footsteps. When he ran for Senate and won, I was talking with a good friend of mine. I said, "Well, who's going to run for Reggie's seat?" And they said, "Well, Damon, you should run because, you know, you're a nice guy. People like you. You've lived here your entire life. You're an attorney. You know, we need good representation in Baton Rouge." And again, I felt it was my way I could give back to my community. And so I just went knocked on doors and introduced myself to everybody, and I was elected.
Now, you have since run two elections. That was your first election, and you have since run twice and won twice.
Mhm.
So you obviously know what it takes to win elections. And has anything changed from the first time that you ran for office and now? I understand that 10 years ago it didn't cost as much to run for office as it does now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're constantly learning. If I'm in the political field for the next 40 years, I'm sure I'll still learn. It's a moving target. It's always changing. It's very dynamic. But things have changed. The campaigns were costly 10 years ago when I first ran. They have not. They have escalated in price. I've learned a lot. That it's still getting your message to the people, which is not always the easiest thing to do. Being involved in the community, which makes it sometimes difficult when I'm in Baton Rouge 3 or 4 months of the year, and then when I'm not in Baton Rouge, I'm back trying to go to every event that I can. It's sometimes difficult to stay in touch with the people when you're in Baton Rouge, at a minimum 4 months of the year, sometimes more than that. So. But you do the best that you can. You represent the people well, and I feel I've done the best job I could.
What are some of the highlights of your term in the legislature? What are some of the things that you're most proud of?
Well, the most important issues from day one when I got to legislature was coastal restoration, hurricane preparedness. That was by far my number one reason I went to the legislature, I think, because, again, we were losing our heritage, we were losing our coast, we didn't have adequate hurricane protection. Those were my number one issues 10 years ago, and they're still my number one issues today. I'm proud because we've got tremendous amounts of money from Morganza to the Gulf project on the state level. It's supposed to be funded about 17.5% by state funds, and myself and the rest of the delegation, Reggie Dupre, Gordy Dove, and the rest of the Terrebonne Lafourche delegation, over the years we've got our 17.5% in about 3 or 4 years, which we thought would have taken 15 years to get. So we're way ahead of the ball as far as state funds for Morganza to the Gulf. Locally, we've put up a sales tax, and that's bringing in about $5 or $6 million a year. But we were able to bring tens of millions of dollars for the levee system. So that was probably my biggest accomplishment. I know we've got the ball rolling. We've got the funds from the state that we can get. Now we have to fight for federal funds, and that's why another thing why I think we should go to I would love to go to Washington to fight for those federal funds. Coastal restoration is also another big thing. Probably the biggest piece of legislation that I co-authored, that I worked with Senator Dupre, was that we dedicate any outer continental shelf revenue source towards coastal restoration. We really pulled a rabbit out of the hat. We passed that legislation prior to us getting any money. It was really a hope and a dream that we'd ever get any money from outer continental shelf royalties. We passed the constitutional amendment. It passed overwhelmingly. About a year and a half later, Senator Landrieu pulled a rabbit out of her hat and got us some revenue sharing. So starting in 2017, we'll probably get about $500 million a year coming from offshore revenue sources that goes straight to coastal restoration and hurricane protection. And that's what we need, the kind of long-term, solid, reliable funding source to restore our coast. And that by far is the biggest accomplishment in my legislative career.
There are a lot of people hurting as a result of the issues regarding the British petroleum oil spill. The shrimping industry has suffered. The oil industry has suffered. A lot of people who were working in the oil industry as a result of the moratorium have lost their jobs. They have a lot of questions. A lot of people are wondering if they're going to have a job next month, even next week, even tomorrow. What, as a state legislator, what would you say to those people to give them hope, and what can they expect from their legislative body as far as a response to their needs at this time?
The response of the legislature has been overwhelming. We'll do everything it takes. We may call ourselves into special session next couple of weeks. Even though it's summertime, everybody wants vacation. If we have to go back, we will go back to address any needs that we can. We will survive this. It's going to be a difficult process. We're doing our best to work with BP as much as we can. This is different from a hurricane damage, because hurricane damage, the government takes in and takes control and gets the utilities back up and gets everything that we need running, functioning as a society back. But this is a private organization which the government doesn't have that much control over. So, but we do everything we can. We help guide them. We work closely with BP to send people to areas where they can get the resources they need, whether it be reimbursement payments for their businesses or services for their food, anything.
Mr. Baldone, thank you so much for being on Interview with Mike Billiot today. It's been a pleasure. I hope the public has enjoyed interviewing and having a conversation with you as much as I have. Thank you so much once again for joining us from your home. Thanks for joining Interview with Mike Billiot.